If you're using Streamer.bot in 2026 and you're still avoiding the execute C# code sub action because you think you're not a programmer, you're basically leaving 90% of Streamer.bot's power on the table. You don't need a computer science degree to do this, you just need to know how to talk to the bot. In this video, I'm gonna teach you the language of Streamer.bot. I'm gonna show you exactly where to find every piece of viewer data that Streamer.bot receives, and more importantly, how to manipulate that data using simple code. By the end of this video, you're gonna be able to write your first ever C# script so that you could tell your streamer friends, "Hey homie, don't touch me, I'm a coder now." Hey, what's up guys, it's Rexboards, and I'm making this video because Streamer.bot has evolved to a point where it is possible to build complex algorithms without using a single line of code. But here's the truth. Knowing how to use C# on Streamer.bot is like discovering you have superpowers. It's the exact moment where you realize that you can do things that other people can't. You know when Peter Parker realized that he could eject a white sticky fluid from his wrist? It's like sticky and messy at first, and you don't know where it's coming from. But man, it changes everything. Coding in Streamer.bot is exactly like that. I know it's a little bit sticky and messy at first, but once you learn how to aim it, you can swing across the entire Streamer.bot city with ease. It's like, if you can think it, you can code it, like literally. Now I'm starting a series to unfold the mystery of coding in Streamer.bot. But I want to be clear, I'm not going to give you a university-like computer science basic programming lecture. I'll just go straight to the coding principles that I believe are directly relevant to you as a streamer. Okay? So let's get on to it. So in this window, you can find that there are two columns. On the left column are variable names, and on the right column are the values, or sometimes known as arguments. Now, arguments are the actual value of the data. And the variable name is something like, you can think of it as a container where you can store the argument. And variable is what you call the name of that container, or the label that you put on the container. I think it'll be easier to explain this to you by showing you an actual example. So let's look at here. On the left side, there is a variable called username, and on the right, it says Rexboards. That means that the action was triggered by Rexboards. And there's a lot more things that we could learn about Rexboards through looking at the data. So we could learn if Rexboards is a moderator. If it says true, then that means he is. And we could also learn if Rexboards is a VIP. And it says here false, which means he's not a VIP of the channel. So using code, you can get any of these arguments that are available and tell Streamer.bot what to do based on the value of that argument. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you how to get the value of the username using code. So we're expecting to get the value Rexboards using C# code. To create a C# sub action, all you need to do is go to sub actions, right click, click add, core, C#, and finally execute C# code. A new window will pop up, and this is where a lot of people get scared. Now don't get intimidated by the lines of code that are already pre-existing here. All you need to know is any additional lines of code need to go under this green line that says your main code goes here. Okay, our next step is try to get the value of the username that's gonna trigger this action. And to do that, all we need to do is type in uppercase CPH and then period. After typing that in, you're gonna see that a new panel just popped up. Now, this list that you can find in the panel are called methods in C#. I'm gonna explain in a later video what methods are. Sometimes they're known as functions, but all you need to know for now is that methods are basically the same as Streamer.bot sub actions. I believe for every Streamer.bot sub action, there is a corresponding C# method to it. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I believe. Now, The C# method that I'm gonna use to get the value of the person or the username of the person that's gonna trigger this is the try get arg method. Okay, as soon as I type in parentheses, I'm gonna get another suggestion here. This panel that just popped up is simply telling us the parameters that are required in order to run this C# method. Think of it as the input values that are needed when you try to run a sub action. You know what I'm talking about? Now, the try get arg method is the same as the set argument Streamer.bot sub action, and we know that the set argument sub action requires two inputs, or in C# code it requires two parameters. Okay, so the first input that it requires is arg name, or also known as variable name, which is found on the left hand side of the two columns that I showed you earlier. So what I want to get is the variable called user. I need to enclose this in quotation marks because it is looking for a string. I'm gonna explain this to you later, but let's leave it like this for now. And then I'm gonna hit comma, space. I'm gonna type in out. And then after out, it is asking what kind of object is it? And we're gonna tell it it's a string. Again, I'll explain this later. And what's the value that you want to name it? I also want to name it user. And then we always need to end each line of code in a semicolon. When you're coding, you need to know the type of data you're dealing with. Now, there are three data types that I think are mostly relevant to Streamer.bot coding, and those three are string, int, and bool, or sometimes also known as boolean. When we're dealing with words or sentences, we're talking about strings. When we're dealing with numbers that are going to be used for numerical operations, we're talking about int. When we're dealing with true or false values, we're talking about bool or boolean. The reason why it's important to know the data types that you're dealing with is because when you're dealing with strings, which is the first parameter that is required here, as you can see, you need to enclose it in quotation marks. If you're dealing with ints or booleans, you don't need to do this. Don't worry about this user, why it's not enclosed in quotation marks. As you can see here, it's because it's not asking for a string, it's just asking for an object. But you don't really need to worry about that for the most part. If it's asking for a string, if it says here string, then make sure that you enclose the name of the variable in quotation mark. If it's an int, you don't need to do that, or a boolean. Okay, so what we just did here is the same as the Streamer.bot sub action set argument. It's basically telling the code that if you find a variable name called user in the list of arguments available, I want you to output that into a string variable called user. Now, you can name this anything you want. You can name this name, username. But usually I name my variables the same as what Streamer.bot names them so that it's easier for me when I'm coding it so that I don't get confused. So I recommend the same. Now let's test our variable. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another line. I'm gonna type in cph dot again, but this time I'm gonna call send message. This is the same as sending Twitch message using the Streamer.bot UI. And I'm gonna type in parentheses so that it gives me the suggestion. Okay, the first parameter is a string called message. It's basically asking me the message that I want to send. Okay, because this is a string, again, we need to enclose this in quotation marks. Okay, now we want to use the variable user. What we're gonna do in Streamer.bot UI, we would use percent symbol, but in coding we're not gonna use percent symbol, but instead we're gonna use curly braces, and we're gonna say user just followed exclamation point. And it's important that when we use a variable inside a string, we need to put a dollar sign in front of the quotation mark. This is called string interpolation. It's just telling the string that there's another string variable, and I want you to actually print the value of the string instead of printing curly brace user. Okay, because if we don't put the dollar sign, when we try to send the message to Twitch, it's gonna say user just followed instead of actually giving out the actual value of the user variable. I hope that made sense. Okay, now that we're done, we're ready to compile this now. Yay! Okay, just press compile or click compile, and if everything goes correctly, everything goes right, it's gonna tell us compiled successfully. And if it did it to you as well, congrats! You just finished your first C# code. But if you didn't get that, I'm sorry. Maybe this is not for you. Maybe you're not cut out for this. Just kidding. Just make sure that you're following every character that I typed in so that it compiles successfully. Because if you miss even a single character, it's gonna tell you you're doing something wrong. So now that it's successfully compiled, we're ready to hit save and compile or just hit OK. Now that we're done with our first ever C# code, it's time to put it to test. Okay, I'm gonna open up my Streamer.bot chat window because we're doing sending a Twitch message in our C# code. Now I'm expecting that when I simulate this trigger, it's gonna send a Twitch message saying that someone just followed. Let's try to simulate it. It says 8th row just followed. Okay, let's try to see if 8th row was actually the name of the user that followed our channel. To check that, we're gonna go to action history and then double click again the action that we just triggered, and let's see user. It says 8th row, which means we successfully grabbed the value of username and used it in our first ever C# code. Let's go! Now you just wrote your first ever C# script for Streamer.bot. Congrats, bro! You're Spider-Man now! Yay! By the way, I just wanted to let you know that everything we did in this video is something that we could easily do within the Streamer.bot UI. We didn't really need to use code with that, but I just wanted to show you how to convert a set of Streamer.bot sub actions into C# code so that you can get comfortable with C# coding. Because the vision is I want to create more videos showing C# coding so that in the later videos, I'm going to show you something that is only possible with C# coding. It's not possible to do within just the Streamer.bot UI. If you have any questions, feel free to comment it down below. I'd be happy to answer that. But if you believe you have a complicated question that needs complicated answers, feel free to join my Discord server. I'll also put the link down below. If you want to see the list of all the C# methods available for Streamer.bot, feel free to check out their website. I'm going to link down the page to the API section down below. So feel free to check that out so that you know what methods are available for Streamer.bot. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, Peter Parker, and I hope to see you in the next one.